So we began our history. It's called Global History, Local Histories. First part, a parade of bones. Histories, local, global. The truth is that our post-colonial museums are built in a different way from those of the hegemony. We reinvent ourselves while allowing pressure from multiple forces to influence us. This includes not only a characteristic genesis, but also the responsibility to involve and build on the community. These are places where cultural politics go further than the possession of museum objects. This does not mean that the museum's peculiar tendency is endogamic. On the contrary, at the present time, the proximity of the peripheral institutions will probably throw some fresh light on the predictable models of museums affairs in other latitudes. This may be an example of the case we are going to present today, and which is related to the ephemerides of 2010 celebration. The celebration, not more and not less, of the 200 years of the independence of Mexico, and the 100 year of what was the first revolution of the last century, the Mexican Revolution of 1910. Although patriotic days are often commemorated in this complicated era of ours, they seem to be an unsatisfactory solution to shape the memory, history, or communal identity of a nation. It is not the poverty of the festivity, on the contrary. What is worrisome is the ostentation devotion to the past. It should be recognized that in political terms, the ephemeris was proposed and reduced to a sort of a bureaucratic carnival, celebrating not only itself but also its power over the past and the future, a homogeneous mass of events that fill the void left by the lack of reflection about the future built on the past. This commemoration became a substantial authoritarian event put on by the federal government and the local government of Mexico City. It appropriated the past and converted it in a sort of multi-million-dollar carnival, a circus that foiled any possibility of critical work. Thus, it was not by chance that at the very beginning of the 21st century, two very different governments, such as Felipe Calderón in Mexico and Hugo Chavez in Venezuela, commemorated their independence with exhumation rituals of the bones of the founding heroes. Ideological, this was a fundamental part of the festivities. The bones were placed in the Mexico 200 Years exhibition in the galleries of the National Palace, and after being paraded, the bones were exhibited in order to be necrophilically observed and venerated. The spectre. What should the role of museums facing this celebration proposal be? How to avoid the reductionism of the collective memory that legitimizes the past as an assumed fact? Should part of the museum exercise be critical interpretation in the fact of past events? Especially, was it taught to our museums to question the conflict of the past and history from an aesthetic platform? It was obvious that the circumstances of the University Museum obliged it to take on the role that encouraged debate and discussion, critically questioning our historical genealogy, the nature of the present, and the construction of the future. It was agreed that a team of 5 curators would convene 16 visual artists in the MOAC Museum to put together the exhibition spectrographies, memories, and history in order to, I quote, appropriate history and from the disestabilization between past, present, and future, research, create, destroy. Underlying the concept and the derived material there is almost obviously, I would say, post-colonial theory, the field of cultural studies, and of course, the inspiration of Jacques Derrida. I only choose for this presentation 4 of the pieces produced for spectrographies that I think will visually underline what I have just proposed. imperfect past. Ever since Mexico was a colony of Spain, the leading role of Catholic Church has been fundamental ingredient in our history. More than 83% of the Mexican population today is Catholic. Aguirre presents us with a name and text on 4 basic levels, all related to the influence the Catholic Church has on Mexican culture. For example, by making the windows of the museum look like stained glass in the church, he then adheres 3,500 names of Pedro's priests from all over the world. Aztec Stadium, malleable prowess. This video is going to be in Venice, in the Biennale Venice. For this video installation, more than 3,000 teenagers from public schools were organized to collaborate in an artistic and social experiment in the biggest football stadium in Mexico, the Aztec Stadium. The source of the images of the mosaics are part of the history of civics and education in Mexico, transforming certain cultural stereotypes into playful, ironic games. 200 Liberty coins. These coins were minted by the Mexican Central Bank to commemorate the bicentennial of Mexico's independence. For nearly 3 years, the artist manually eroded each of the coins on paper supports, signifying the wear of the patriotic symbols of Mexico's current moral crisis. Next. A sacred period of time. The execution by firing squad of Maximiliano of Habsburg in 1876 has always been an uncomfortable and little recreated chapter in Mexican history. The pathetic and tragic story of the fleeting emperor and his wife inspires a quasi-cinematographic production in order to convey the ghost of a forgotten episode. Going back to the beginning. As a colofon to this talk, it could be argued that in museum terms, until a short time ago, the hegemony characterized the other museum's mission as a tool to reinforce the cultural identity of that countries, which, it is assumed, are threatened by a more global, technological, and changing world. However, in reality, and probably precisely because of the advances in the globalization process, the cliches imagined by Eastern Europe and also in the United States have been demystified over the last few decades, influencing the museum skills in other parts of the world. The spectrography's exhibition was displayed over 5,400 feet and has been visited by near 200,000 visitors. We think that spectrography accounts for the possibility of a new critical vision and the way of facing museum ideology and art in the complex museological world of our century. Thank you very much.